How are you today? My name is Jim Wallace. I'm on staff at Crossroads International Church in South Attleboro, Mass. Today I'm here to address extreme fear and really how to react to it when it comes upon you. And those circumstances are just so big you can't handle them. I'd like to start out by reading an old story from the Old Testament found in 2 Chronicles 20. Alarmed, Jehoshaphat resolved to inquire of the Lord, and he proclaimed a fast for all Judah. The people of Judah came together to seek help from the Lord. Indeed, they came from every town in Judah to seek him. If calamity comes upon us, whether the sword of judgment, or plague, or famine, we will stand in your presence before the temple that bears your name and cry out in our distress, and you will hear us and save us. But now here are the men from Ammon, from Moab, and Mount Seir, whose territory you would not allow Israel to invade when they came from Egypt. So they turned away from them and did not destroy them. See how they are repaying us for not driving them out of possession? Because you gave us an inheritance. Our God will you not come to judge them? For we have no power to face this vast army that is attacking us. We do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you. By the time we find Jehoshaphat's king, Judah was a really tiny nation, and that made them really easy pickings to nations around them that were much larger and much larger armies because they were just so small. We learned that the king was bringing many reforms, and as we read, the Moabites, the Ammonites, and the Mennonites were coming against them here in battle. They combined, by the way, their forces. The most sensible thing to do would have been for this king to just go out and surrender, for Joseph to go and forge a treaty with these other nations. Um, and that's what people do when they're outnumbered. Why there was no human way for this tiny nation to defeat an army of this immense size, and you can see that the response was very human too. The king was afraid, and why would he not be afraid? And yet we also notice he didn't stop there with fear. Let's make something clear. Having fear is not sinful, it's not a failure, and it's not even a disobedient act. In fact, we can think of fear as like a warning to us. When I was on the boat in the Navy on submarines, we had many alarms, and they were all different, and they communicated a different kind of event that could happen or was happening. And for others, there was a general alarm that would capture another myriad of things to respond to. In short, it made you respond to the alarm. Fear is a shout out about danger. So we must decide what to do with fear. We can act, we can recoil, we can ignore it. The old fight or flight thing. Again, we can act, we can recoil, or we can ignore it. And King Jehoshaphat here does the right thing. He set himself to seek God for help. Why? Because he didn't have an answer. He wasn't ignorant enough to think that his army could defeat this much larger army of his enemies. That's a great lesson, that we must know that we have to understand our limitations. We must know our limitations, and we also must know that the enemy can be powerful, and we can't always defeat them by ourselves. Why do you think you can do that by yourself when you find yourself in foolish situations and you find yourself in really bad mistakes? Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get over your skis, as they say, and on a very steep terrain. The king not only cried out to God, but he also proclaimed a fast, right, for the whole land, not just for himself. And he stood among the people and prayed with them for deliverance. Our God, will you not judge them? For we have no power to face this vast army that is attacking us. We do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you. That's exactly the kind of prayer that God wanted to hear, and he still wants to hear today from you. The people admitted that they didn't know what to do. The people admitted they knew they could not win, and the people admitted that their only hope was in God's deliverance. And God responds immediately. Picking up in verse 15, he says, "Listen, all you people of Judah, Jerusalem, listen, King Jehoshaphat, this is what the Lord says. Do not be afraid. Don't be discouraged by this vast armies, for the battle is not yours, but God's. Tomorrow march out against them. You will find them coming up through the ascent of Ziz at the end of the valley that opens into the wilderness of Jeruel. But you will not even need to fight. Take your positions and stand still and watch the Lord's victory. He is with you. O people of Judah and Jerusalem, do not be afraid or discouraged. Go out against them tomorrow, for the Lord is with you. If you tune out all of this, of what I've talked about today, remember this. The battle is not yours, but God's. This is the big secret of winning battles against your enemy. You acknowledge your fear, and even if you call it holy fear, allow to push your heart and mind to God. Even if you are not afraid, please reach out to God and hear his wisdom and see his provision, and he'll get you through the smallest of challenges to the largest of challenges. And when you cry out like this, God hears you and races to the rescue. This is not my promise, by the way. This is his promise. Lastly, you're not alone. We're doing Hope Day next week in Rhode Island. There are people that have a need, and they're gonna be crying out there, and they're gonna be hurting, and God's gonna be there in that event to meet them. They're already crying out now, even now, and around the area of Warwick, and then suddenly Hope Day is going to be there and meet their need with groceries and other needs. So you see, God is already moving into place to meet needs. If you're struggling, please call our office and get in contact with any one of us on staff. We want to be there for you. We desire to bless you. We desire to be part of the response that God has and expects from his church. It's his church, and we hope to be active in doing what he asks. Next week, join me again. We're going to talk about be careful what you think. I so appreciate you listening every week, and thanks. I'll see you next week, next Monday. Take care. Bye-bye.